Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're going to shine a massive floodlight into the darkest, most unexamined corners of our own psyches. We are diving deep into the fascinating and, honestly, kind of uncomfortable truths presented in Kevin Simler and Robin Hanson's eye-opening book, The Elephant in the Brain.
All right, to get started, I want you to picture a super familiar scene. Imagine you're at a dinner party. Someone is telling a story, and when they hit the punchline, everyone around the table laughs, perhaps a little too loudly, and, a little too long. On the surface, they're just enjoying a joke. But is that really all that's happening? Or consider a classic workplace scenario. You've got this colleague who eagerly volunteers for the upcoming corporate charity event. It's a noble thing to do, right? Absolutely. But then you happen to notice they only ever seem to pick up the sign-up sheet when the boss is walking by. Or what about that friend who just dropped a small fortune on a wildly expensive luxury car? If you ask them, they'll passionately insist that it's all about the top-tier engineering, the handling, and the safety features. But come on, is it really just about getting from point A to point B safely? Section 1. The Elephant in the Brain. Unmasking the Truth. So, in all these everyday cases, the stated reasons sound perfectly admirable. But according to the authors, they are almost never the real reasons. Simler and Hanson argue that there's this massive elephant in the brain. I mean, we absolutely love to think of ourselves as these highly rational, wonderfully altruistic creatures. But the uncomfortable truth is that beneath our polished, socially acceptable explanations lies a whole hidden world of selfish motives. At the end of the day, we're primates, and we are hardwired for social survival and competition. And here is the really profound twist on human psychology. We don't just hide these motives from our peers, our brains actually hide them from us. From an evolutionary standpoint, this self-deception is actually a feature, not a bug. Actually, think about it this way. If you don't consciously know you're acting out of pure self-interest, you won't look guilty. It makes you a far more convincing liar, making it much harder for anyone else to catch you in the act. Moving to Section 2, our evolutionary arms race, redwoods and social brains. To understand why our brains pull these sneaky little tricks, we have to look back at our primate cousins. Chimpanzees, for example, will spend hours grooming each other, even when they're perfectly clean. They do it simply as a political act to build trust and forge alliances.
And this behavior brilliantly illustrates the social brain hypothesis. There's this fantastic analogy in the book called the parable of the redwoods. Redwood trees grow absurdly, massively tall, not because they need to be that tall to survive in nature, but simply because they are competing with other redwoods for sunlight. Our brains are exactly the same. They grew massively complex not just to hunt and gather, but to compete in an endless, treacherous social arms race against our fellow humans.
So, what exactly are we competing for? Well, the authors pinpoint 3 primary competitive games that shaped our minds and drive almost everything we do today. First up is sex, where we compete for mates. A lot of human behavior, like art, music, and, even that dinner party humor, functions kind of like a peacock's elaborate kale. Second is social status, where we jockey for friends, allies, prestige, and dominance. And third is politics, where we compete for power by forming strategic coalitions. Which brings us to Section 3, fig leaves and self-deception, the art of hiding. Now, because early human groups developed really strict norms against blatant selfishness, we had to get incredibly creative about hiding our competitive drives right in broad daylight. To pull this off, we use what the authors call fig leaves. Basically, a fig leaf is a flimsy, sometimes even ridiculous excuse that lets us get away with breaking the rules right in front of everyone. Why does it work? Well, because frankly, people are lazy. If you provide a ready-made excuse, others usually won't bother putting in the effort to expose your true underlying motives, especially for minor violations. So here's the absolute crucial point. Our self-deception isn't like that old Freudian idea of just protecting our fragile egos from feeling sad. No, the evolutionary approach argues we deceive ourselves to become elite manipulators. We hide uncomfortable truths from our own conscious minds because the absolute less we know about our own ugly, selfish motives, the effortlessly easier it is to hide them from the rest of the world. All right, Section 4, Hidden Motives in Plain Sight, the Illusions of Everyday Life. Let's take that massive floodlight and aim it right at our everyday behaviors to see just how deep this self-deception really goes.
Let's start with conversation. We love to tell ourselves that when we're chatting, our stated purpose is simply exchanging useful information and ideas, right? But the hidden purpose? Oh, it's actually a highly competitive market. We are constantly signaling our intelligence, our social connections, and our overall value as a potential teammate or ally.
There's a quote here that just completely hits the nail on the head. Listeners care less about the tools you share with them, they're really salivating over your backpack. When you share a really interesting fact, people aren't just absorbing the data. They are subconsciously evaluating the underlying quality of your mind, the resources you possess, and what you bring to the table socially.
And hey, what about consumption? Think back to that friend with the luxury car we talked about earlier. The stated purpose is all about practical utility and engineering. But hidden right beneath that? That car is basically a rolling billboard. It advertises wealth and success. In fact, the source notes that most luxury car commercials aren't actually aimed at the buyers, they're aimed at creating envy among everyone else, which firmly establishes the buyer's elite status.
Now, brace yourself because this next one might sting a little bit. Let's look at education. We're always told the stated purpose is teaching practical skills and facilitating learning. But the book makes the rather provocative claim that formal education is essentially a signaling game. The hidden purpose is to act as a very costly signal to future employers, proving that you've got the intelligence, the conscientiousness, and the conformity required to sit still, follow rules, and meet strict deadlines.
And then there's politics. On paper, the stated purpose is having objective, rational debates about the merits of public policy to improve society. But the hidden purpose? Yeah, the authors argue it's essentially a tribal competition for power. We frequently support policies not because we've done some deep, careful analysis of the economic outcomes, but to signal unwavering loyalty to our chosen group and clear hostility to the opposing side.
Okay, moving on to Section 5, becoming a compassionate realist, balancing cynicism with empathy. Now, if unmasking all of these illusions is leaving you feeling a little bit cynical right now, trust me, you are not alone. But the authors warn us not to stop there.
The source material breaks down 5 distinct ways we can react to this kind of truth bomb. You might start out as the unaware actor, totally blind to the elephant in your brain. And once you do learn about hidden motives, well, it's dangerously easy to slide into being the paranoid, cynical observer. But the true path forward? That's striving to become the compassionate realist.
You see, the compassionate realist deeply understands a fundamental truth. These hidden motives are a universal human trait. We are all, every single one of us, playing the exact same game. When you realize that every single person is navigating this complex social landscape with a brain wired by evolution to cover its own tracks, you can start replacing harsh judgment with genuine empathy.
To help build this mindset, the analysis outlines a really practical 30-day challenge. Step 1. Start observing these hidden motives in other people, paying attention to conversations and body language. Step 2. Aggressively examine your own actions, like ask yourself what you are really signaling. Step 3. Apply this framework to large institutions like medicine and education. And finally, Step 4. Integrate. Balance this profound new awareness with deep compassion for your fellow humans.
I mean, finding out that we aren't quite the selfless heroes of our own stories, yeah, that can be pretty jarring. But honestly, acknowledging our hidden motives is the very first, absolutely essential step to real wisdom. So, I want to leave you with this final thought to chew on. The next time you find yourself strongly insisting that your actions are purely noble, pause for just a second and ask yourself, what is the elephant in your brain really trying to say?